Friday, and I've had a great day overall. Glad that you're with me today. I'm Stephen Tocher. I've been coaching and mentoring and doing discipleship for 20 years. Over the past 20 years, predominantly with men. I've done mentoring and coaching with women as well, but I'm focusing on men these days as I feel that's where God is taking me. Now, tonight, I'd like to talk to you about the ways we can overcome the things that are depressing us, the top 10 things that are causing people to be depressed or causing people to lose their ability to function in society was what we dealt with last week. And now it's, I think, time to address how to positively deal with these stressors. So, one of the number one things that is really causing people a lot of stress at the moment is job loss and the lack of jobs that are around right now. Now, one of the things I would really suggest is that if you are worried about your job, or you're trying to hold down your job, or you're looking for a job, all of these, hopefully, these tools and tips will apply. And I'd say the number one thing to do is to continue to create your social stratus, your social stratosphere. What you want to do is you want to continually be connecting with people, going for coffee with people, because the way of the future when it comes to combating AI or job loss will be how we can connect with others and how well people receive us. Without that basic skill set, AI can take over a job. You will have a lot of entrepreneurs, smaller entrepreneurs, that be able to run their business full time, no problem. Um, but the people who are going to be able to keep like a normal job where an employer is paying them will be with that ability to connect with others, and also most likely if they're able to use the AI tools themselves. So I'd say the number one thing that you can do is continue to educate yourself with human behaviors, relationships, learning a different language. I think the more languages you learn, the better it's going to be. There's Google Translate, and there's the new Meta glasses that are really and truly fantastic. I'm just looking at the chat here. That are really and truly fantastic for being able to just instantaneously be able to conversate with just about anyone on the planet. The problem is, though, is that the lack of instant communication, knowing that other person's language, can cause people to not feel as connected as they'd like. So these wonderful technology pieces are great, but they're not going to be as wonderful and as useful as the human connection. So if you could do anything to combat this number one issue, I'd say with job loss or joblessness, or you being worried about your job, is try to become the most interconnected person within your company. If you have a job right now, try to educate yourself with multiple different languages, or different avenues. Maybe even going to like a Toastmasters class, because the way of the future, yes, is AI. The way of the future is people probably sitting at their desks a lot of the time, as much as governments and companies are trying to get people back to work, which has its pros and cons. But without that deep interconnectedness, without that looking someone in the eye and being able to feel that sympathy and empathy, you're going to find jobs harder and harder as time goes on. Of course, God willing, of course, in your situation, if that's something that's a big hurdle for you, or maybe you have a mental health issue, or you have like an extreme anxiety, then obviously, hopefully, you can find the right job. But that's just something that may be able to help you if there is job loss coming your way, or you feel like there's no future for you yourself, is to lean into those multiple languages, as well as lean into your ability just to connect with people. I'm just looking at the chat. Again, if anyone has any questions or comments or thoughts, tonight we're going to be dealing with the 10 depressing things that are really hurting people today. We dealt with that last week, and now we're going to kind of go through some of the exercises and thought processes that we can use to overcome these depressive situations. So Sam over here, I had a break. Everyone showing off pictures cause I had when I was, I had to break every rule showing off. Sorry, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying there, Sam, but thank you for the message. Watch my back when it's time to step. Hopefully, you do watch your back. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to get at there, but yeah, hopefully everything works out. Okay, so the number two thing is here. Uh, I am not married to a man, but thank you for the question, Mr. DSJ. All right, so the cost of living, I think, would be number two. People are really concerned about as your prices are rising, and a lot of people are not getting payment or getting pay increases at the same rate as inflation, and that can be very, very difficult for everyone who's on a tight budget. I think again, these numbers are could be could be off, and I Google check actually, but from what was an anecdotal conversation with a friend who was speaking with a high up in the rankings of a business. I think it was maybe Scotia or Royal Bank. Again, don't quote me on these in this anecdotal conversation, but they said something like 30 to 40% of Canadians are like $20,000 in like credit card debt or more, and like close to 70 to 80% of Canadians are in consistent debt on non-car and non-housing, and that's like a scary. That's a very scary number that so many people are swimming in the world of debt. Um, yes, DSJ. Nice. Thanks for the prayers and the thought processes. I hope you have a good night either way. So I think the cost of living is a huge problem for most people. They're like, for instance, over the past 10 years at the company I've been working for, I think on average, I think we've gotten about 3% of a an increase, and that pay increase was only at maybe, I think if I got maybe let's say 30% over the past 10 years in a pay increase, I'd say inflation's probably gone close to 40%. And that's, hey, how are you, Rainbow Fork? Nice to meet you. That form of type of inflation can really cripple you, over time, right? Like that 10% loss, like when you feel like you're gaining in a lot of other places, you're losing on groceries, you're losing on rent, or maybe it's if you own something, you're losing on that, and it's debilitating. So again, one of the things to combat the cost of living, and it's a really just a hard fact that we're dealing with, is to maybe pick up a few hours, doing a side gig. There's a lot of side gigs out there. Now you have to also be very wary of the amount of people who are trying to scam people, especially as you're giving your payment information, and they can flip back, unless it's like maybe a PayPal or something like that, they can really screw you up. There's a lot of ways that people are becoming very crafty at stealing your money and hurting you. But for the most part, looking for these types of side gigs, even if it's like YouTube editing, or if you have a specific skill, like say you do have finance, maybe it is helping people during tax time. There's a lot of different ways to combat the cost of living, or it could be just something like we don't have extreme couponing like we do like they do in the States, but couponing or getting down with your flyers and doing price matching. A lot of the time cost of living is uh, can be combated by bad habits that we have, and a lot of the time these addictions and bad habits that we have contribute to that massive drain in the bank, and most of the time people don't want to actually spend the time to calculate how much their addiction or their bad habit is costing them. um, so I'm just checking the chat here. Sorry, I thought I saw a couple messages pop up. Yeah. So I think between the job loss and cost of living, financially speaking, people are really, feeling the crunch these days, and it hurts my heart to see how many people are consistently turning to credit cards or going into debt or consolidating their debt. And the banking system as a whole is a very, very tough um, a very, very tough industry to understand, especially if you're like myself. I started off very illiterate when it came to the banking world. None of my family had credit. Like I'm talking like no credit cards. You know, zero forms aside from a bank account of any form of credit at all. And I built myself up to having a fantastic credit, getting offers consistently for high amounts of credit. And that took years and years of just making sure I made the purchase. I kept a bit of a ledger, and as soon as I made the purchase on my credit card, I paid it off, and I was able to accumulate those points over time. So in just the small, simple ways of just maybe spending time to take down a budget, or look at the types of things that you buy throughout the month, that may be able to help you to break down where you may have an addiction, or where you have a bad spending habit, and that may help you in the long run. Or maybe it's something like, something that you feel is really healthy for you, like maybe protein powder. You're working out a lot, or maybe it's fruits and vegetables. Maybe you can buy those things in bulk. Another thing you can do with, I find, for cost of living wise, is I love fruit. Our family loves fruit, and we used to buy fresh fruit all the time, and it was costing us like $150 a month, just for the fresh produce, for a family of four. But when we started going to frozen fruits that are flash frozen, you end up getting, a pretty good price of, at the end of the day. Like, basically, I'd say it's about $1 to $1.50 per 100 grams, which is pretty amazing compared to fresh fruit. And if you like fresh fruit and that's your jam, cool. But we ended up saving probably like 50 to $75 a month just by buying frozen fruits, like frozen mango, frozen. We freeze our bananas because bananas are super cheap. But there's like a bunch of little tricks and trades you can do. Um, okay. Barkman number one, hope to see you soon. Hey Barkman, nice to see you as well, sir. I don't understand because I'm human and stuff. Okay, well, ZAYD. I am glad that you are human and stuff. Hopefully you're not stuffed human. That would not be good, but the aliens would be really happy. All right, so we've tackled job loss, cost of living, relationships. One of the things that are causing men in particular to really struggle with relationships are, the alpha beta that's going on right now, where men feel that they're in an alpha situation or in a beta situation, and they're dealing with, I think it's like the 80-20 rule that the world has constructed. And it's brutal, it's awful, the way men see themselves and view themselves. And so, one of the ways to combat that is, for myself as a Christian, it's self-worth, and it's allowing yourself to be in a place of proper connectivity. A lot of the times we go to places that are very, very unhealthy for our self-worth, and we go to a lot of places that are uh, self-serving for other people, but not for ourselves. And I'm talking about relationships when it comes to family, when it comes to friends, when it comes to hopefully a spouse. Relationships are getting increasingly hard because of the usage of social media, doom scrolling, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So it's something that is it's imperative for us as humans to exist, to have relationships. So one of the ways I would say to really combat that is, from a non-church setting, is to start maybe serving or going to places that you have a heart call for. That you can, maybe it's the homeless community. One of my coworkers, he really had a calling towards the homeless community, and I helped guide him for about 6 months in that direction, or 4 to 6 months in that direction. Now he's avid in that community. He tries to advocate within his city for better um, allocations of fund toward the homeless community and just long-term health and help. So I think that's just one area is serving. Another is really finding out things that you enjoy and sticking to them. I think a lot of people are very much followers. They follow the hottest trend or whatever's going on. But I think to do like a deep self-evaluation of the things that you really like versus the things you don't, and spending that time to really just go head over heels into the hobbies that you enjoy, because sooner or later you're just going to find those friendships and that connectivity. I had another coworker who they were able to over time they got into a card community, and they felt like, oh, this is kind of foolish of me. I'm in my mid 20s. Why am I spending times at gaming shops and doing all this stuff? And now he goes. They might want to plan a trip together. They're like three or four guys that he's met, and they're just having a good set of friendship. And who knows what kind of interconnectivity they get there. I've heard of some people who've met at like Comic Cons and different forms of video game or gaming or playing sports. Like there's a lot of co-ed sports that are going on. The main thing is with relationships on a non-Christian level is to find places that you truly love and that will help you. Hey, Odele, nice to see you, brother. Yeah, of course, definitely. Yeah, this is only my third streams. I definitely remember everyone who's beyond. How are you doing? And if you want to pop in a question or thought, absolutely. And we have been praying for you, or in my heart, I've been praying for you. Yes, so now from a Christian perspective, I think one of the best things that you can do is consistently go to church. Now, finding a church is really hard these days. It feels that way as well because we're in a world that is very wishy-washy and that allows for people to um, kind of just bring in their own beliefs and thought processes and kind of perpetuate that onto the Bible. So one of the things I would really suggest is trying to find a church online maybe and make sure the preaching is solid, and from the preaching a lot of things will kind of unfold. It doesn't always happen that way, but usually with good preaching, you'll usually have good discipleships, good deacons, good elders, and people in that arena that would hopefully be able to help you to connect in the right way. Now, once you've kind of found that church and you're going to it on a consistent basis, there's something called life groups you can start attending. And these are kind of ministries that I like a lot, but at the same time, I think they're only half of that relationship building that you need. I think the silos are like going to a men's group, a women's group, or there's the children's ministry, or there's like the young adults ministry. But the marketplace is where you need to meet up with people that are not your own age, people that have various forms of life experience, or maybe it's a couple, maybe it's a couple single people, maybe it's an older person, someone who's widowed, someone who's just new to the faith. You need those marketplace type situations to connect. And Odele, I'll definitely get to your comment there in a second. You want to just be able to meet in those places and connect and have long-term relationships, because you never know, especially as a young man, if maybe there's a couple that has a young daughter that after they see who you are and what you're all about and how much you love the Lord, maybe there's some form of connection there too. Not to say that you're going to a life group or something to date. But I think the number one thing you can do is, once you're in that kind of a community and once you're connecting with people in different levels, is to serve. I think serving is like one of the best ways if you'd like to find a spouse within the Christian context, and non-Christian as well, but serving across the board. Because when you are really engaged with the people group that you would like to connect with, it goes a long way, especially if that other person that you may meet, whether it's a friend or future spouse, has that same calling in their lives, whether it's going on a short-term or long-term mission trip, or whether it's trying to feed the homeless, or maybe it's working with inner city youth, maybe it's evangelism. I don't know. It could be a number of things, but the main thing is that within relationship building, you want to set yourself up in a community and in places that you really like. So for those of you who are joining us today, we're going through the top 10 things from last week that cause depression or cause people a heavy anxiety, and now we're trying to deal with them and talk about them. So I'm just going to go to the comment section here. Doing great. My driving lessons are going good and stuff. Still in a tough at work, but getting by. So you gotta take the good with the bad, I suppose. Well, thank you for your prayers, man. That's cool beans. I just thank you for the comment, Odele. And yeah, work is tough. I feel that 100%. I've worked now 15 companies, 34 different positions over the past 25, 26 years, sometimes working up to 100 hours a week. I have worked. Hey, it's Jenny from the block. Hi. How are you? Good to see you again. So over the years, I've worked. I've put in, I'd say, I'm about 40 years old now in another week. And I've put in, I would say, if you were to work about 40 to 45 hours a week, like that's the normal work week, I've put in about 35 years of work already. Again, sometimes doing 60, 80, 100 hours a week, working 3 or 4 jobs at a time. So keep on grinding, Odele. It's a tough world out there, uh, but you got this. You definitely got this. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is doom scrolling. Maybe how you ended up here tonight. Doom scrolling is one of those things that can really be debilitating because it takes hours out of your life. And there's a few apps that you could use that may be able to cut off your time on how long you're on social media. So that's one of the ways that you could potentially fight off doom scrolling. But I think it's just being conscious and aware of the times in which the doom scrolling is the worst. Usually for most people, it's at night. That's kind of why I'm here. To be able to, you're going, you're going, you're going. You want a quick fix. You want a quick laugh, or maybe you want to see things that really spark your mind or make you feel good about yourself, when in reality, there's so many other things you could be applying yourself to, you could be doing in this time. Maybe it's working out, maybe it's preparing to get up, to go to bed, to get up earlier, because most temptations and most problems and most addictions are going to happen, past 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, when the sun goes down, when there's less likelihood of social connectivity. So just something to think about when it comes to doom scrolling is to try to maybe even look into spending the money to get an app to consolidate your time, and or maybe the time of day in which you enjoy social media, because that doom scrolling that comes up, it's not good. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's good in its time frame and its proximity, but for the most part, you have to be very careful because it can suck away time of precious sleep, and away, and time away from doing something that, hey, even like, if I would rather you be out there streaming and serving and helping someone than watching me right now. And if it is a good time for you to watch me, fantastic. But the whole concept of doom scrolling is the company, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube here, or whatever the company is, they want your attention. They're buying for your time. So unless you're really getting something very, very useful out of it, those are some of the things that you want to look at in trying to combat doom scrolling. Do I like Tamil food? Yes, I do. Thank you, Jenny from the block, or Jen from the block. Yes, I just had mutton buns. I love the samosas. I'm not, too well versed with a lot of Tamil food. Like, I have friends who are Tamil, so I have definitely gone to eat with them. I don't know the names of the dishes. I do like their curries a lot of the time. The people that I hang out with are also Tamil and they're Hindu, and so I've had a lot of Hindu dishes. Sorry, Hindu dishes. I've had a lot of vegetarian dishes. But the Tamil food is quite fantastic. Thank you again for the comment. I appreciate it. Okay, the next thing that causes people to really feel distressed that we talked about last week would be AI. Now, you can either be in really one of two major camps here. You can be in the camp of, I am going to resist it. I hate AI. AI is, from the devil. It's the worst thing in the world. Or you can look at it from, this is a fantastic tool, or it is a tool, maybe not as fantastic as it could be. It has a lot of danger to it, but I need to use it and be able to understand it and cultivate it to be able to make myself relevant, to be able to work, to be able to cut down on cost, make myself more efficient, and in reality, just be able to communicate with people moving forward into the future. Because whether or not we like it, unless something catastrophically happens globally, which would be probably much worse, AI is definitely here to stay, and we are years or maybe a decade away from it becoming sentient and having its own kind of thought processes to whatever the smartest people in the world would more or less label that type of definition. But to combat that AI, that depression, that frustration, is to just, I think, realize that it is a tool. So let's think of it. let's go back in time slowly. So the internet, when it first came out, there are plenty of people who were like, "This is crazy. The internet's gonna kill everyone. It's gonna hurt everyone." Or even, no, let's go with the internet. I was gonna say crypto, but crypto, still has its ups and downs and still has long way to prove itself. But the internet, there was tons of people. I remember growing up at the mid '90s, early 2000s, and people were like, "I'm never gonna do online banking. I'm never gonna log into a website. I'm gonna do everything with paper and pen." And lo and behold, here we are, billions of users. Pretty much everyone on the planet has to use the internet. It's just one of those things that over time, people just become adapted to it. Now, if you go back even further, it's probably the boob tube. It's probably TV, right? And if any of you can think of, technology that I miss on this mini little rant about how to stay positive within the AI curve, please let me know. So I think before it was TV, and it was like, oh, it's going to suck our minds. We're just going to consistently get infiltrated with visuals and images that are going to construe the way we think or form or think about the world. And then before that, it was radio. Radio to the masses. Before maybe got a telegram, maybe got a letter in the mail, maybe read the newspaper, and that was your main source of information. And now all of a sudden they can broadcast to everybody. And we saw that with the kind of the H.G. Wells with the War of the Worlds, and how people saw an alien invasion unfolding on their, well, they didn't see it, but they played it out in their minds, and inevitably, that was obviously not only fake, but H.G. Wells more or less had to deal with, or is it Orson Welles, had to deal with countless fire department calls and police station calls. So as time moved backwards, more and more and more, you see then the printing, things like the printing press, and there's been a lot of technologies that have happened over the years that are definitely with us to stay. But at the time, it caused a massive kerfuffle. And I do think AI has some of the most, how do I say this? Some of the most radical ways of changing our world today. However, uh, more than any other time in human history, I also believe it's going to be one of those tools that are going to help empower smaller individuals who've never had an opportunity to express their creativity, their scientific minds, their social abilities, their company abilities. Now that they have this tool with AI, they'll be able to make a business to be able to help humanity in many ways. And again, on the flip side, there's going to be plenty of people who are going to do awful and horrible and terrible things. But that's just the kind of the world that we live in. The good thing is that what God says through Paul is where more sin abounds, more grace will abound. And in a world with AI, we definitely have to be concerned about it, but I think we do not fear what AI will do, but it's just to more so stay locked into who controls the universe, as well as to learn about it and keep up our safety, our boundaries, and parameters. So again, tonight, if anyone's here for the first time or you've just logged in, we're going through the 10 depressive things that cause people to be in a real frustrated state last week, to now going through the answers of the ways that we can overcome these feelings and depression and frustrations. The next one I think would be, so far we've done doom scrolling, job loss, cost of living, relationships, AI, and the next one would be housing. Now, housing is really tricky, especially, for instance, in a place like Toronto where things keep going up and down. Things have been nosediving for a little while now, but we're seeing some not even like prices going down, but we're getting, maybe we're still like 20% away from prices being even remotely normal. Compared to the rest of the world, the rest of major cities in Canada, and of course the rest of the world, like probably another 40 to 60%. But Toronto's a bit of an outlier just because of the weather. It's actually one of the best climates in Canada. You have a high immigration rate. You had a more or less bad building, and hard, severe building codes, and a lot of red tape. So the housing across the board in many different cities and countries is becoming a very big problem, because you also have the thing that you're facing, which is a lack of materials. So there's all of these things that are hitting up the housing market all at one time, and not to mention the lack of the workforce, a um, properly trained workforce to execute these plans. And then you have like the investors that came in and bought many of the condos and houses and townhouses. So housing has become one of those things that has really troubled people and hurt people. Now, rent, thankfully, at least in Toronto, is dropping pretty rapidly because of all these factors that are coming in all at one time. And I would really suggest, if you're, for instance, a single person, to if you're not in a church setting, really go to those social places that we talked about earlier, to maybe try to find a roommate, or maybe one or two people that you really trust, to really start saving, because you want to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund in your bank account. Now, say for instance, all your bills cost $3,000. You know, getting $9,000 or $18,000 sounds like a lot, but trust me, if you lose your job, or you're struggling, or you're in a bad place, that money becomes essential to your survival. In my case, with a family, my emergency fund is much larger than that, and I just try to keep that as the base minimum. So I think saving for, uh, obviously, if you're not experiencing job loss, but saving for your long term is crucial. And again, we have a situation where we're in a credit heavy life, and a credit heavy world. So I think from the housing specific type market, it's to really find multiple people that you could potentially connect with, or if you're within a church community, to see if there's people who could help you out along the way. When it comes to if you've lost your job, and you do have a house, and you're struggling just with finances in general, if you'd like to drop a comment, if you'd like me to pray for you, I'd be more than happy to connect with you on that level. But the housing market is it's a very, very tough one. I would just say try to pool together, connect with people, and if you do have a family member that you trust, or a really good friend that could even give you some pro bono time to stay at their place, don't be too proud to ask. That could set you back years or decades, in a tight spot. Don't be afraid of failure in that sense, because a lot of the I'd say the Western world in particular, but the world in general, has put this thought process in people's minds that you have to just go out and be your own person at a young age, and make a lot of money, and live your best life, and so on and so forth. But sometimes you need to just you know uh, you need to hunker down and save. And to any of you parents out there, people who have kids who are in their 30s and 40s, who don't want to leave, obviously that can be problematic too for their growth. But we live in a society now that is kind of moving back towards how most of society has worked, and that is that housing is tough, and you probably got to live with family and friends for a long time until something really changes with your work. You save really well, or maybe you meet the right spouse, or you move to a cheaper place. Now, I'd say the next one is loneliness. To combat loneliness, similar to relationship, but loneliness is a different kettle of fish. People who find themselves in a lonely position could be in a very, very large room, and a lot of the times it comes down to, do you feel safe? Do you feel connected to? Do you feel like you are noticed in this world? So again, from a non-Christian perspective, I think getting in and connecting with people who have similar hobbies with you, whether it's food or gaming or playing sports or knitting, whatever it might be, one of the cures to loneliness is to get into the community that you really like and really enjoy, where you have a focal point of conversation. Now, from a church perspective, there should be multiple layers of connectivity outside of the gospel, outside of Christianity, and your life of sanctification as a whole. However, within that loneliness, people can feel like they've been going. I've met people who've been going to church for weeks, months, years, and they haven't really been able to connect with too many people. So this is a twofold. If you are a person who has seen someone in your church or in your office and no one's really talking to them, I suggest that you kind of try your best to go out there and then just try to connect with them. Of course, if it's a person who you may be concerned about for their mental health, or you may be concerned about like maybe they're the opposite sex and you're not really interested and you don't want to feel like you're coming on, onto them, or them to feel that way. Of course, that's probably not the person you should be connecting with. However, if you do feel like you can connect with someone and you see someone in church, at work, or in the schoolyard, or in the university campus, whatever it might be, try to make that step. Just a hello, a hi. I've heard testimonies of people who've said hello to someone, and it stopped them from really hurting themselves or even committing suicide. For myself, I've actually met one of the nicest and best leaders that I've ever come across due to saying hi. And this person had said, I think for about 2 years, no one in their church had said hello to them. And that was really sad to hear. There's a lot of people who are struggling in that way. Now, if you are the person who is really battling with loneliness, sometimes there are things inside of us that we need to look into as well, that maybe we are rubbing people the wrong way, or maybe we're doing things that are not, maybe I guess, socially as acceptable. And sometimes it's a little bit of self reflection as well. It's not always supposed to be that if a problem is happening to you, it may not just be the fact that it's everyone else's fault. Sometimes it is internal. And for that, of course, maybe talking to a family member or anyone close to you, or even going to a counselor, may be a good idea if you can also afford it. But I think, again, just trying to put yourself in situations where you can connect with people and really, yeah, just put yourself in the same place as people with other hobbies. I think that would be probably one of the best things that you can do if you struggle with loneliness. Now, there was a lot that happened with COVID. COVID was a very, very tough time. People lost their jobs. People were, some people were ostracized for their thoughts and beliefs in different camps. And there's a very big concern still amongst a lot of health professionals, as well as people who are, in the medical field, or they're keeping a pulse or an eye on it, that there's future illnesses that will come up. And I think one of the best things we can do is to not worry about tomorrow. I think that is what Jesus says. I think it's in Matthew, because there's already enough to worry about in today. So I think thinking about those future illnesses and those future problems, and really doomsday planning in that sense, it's good to plan, but you don't want to be putting yourself in a situation where it's like starting to take over your day to day, your thought processes, how you'll do things, how you won't do things, because I say this hopefully never happening, but you can get hit by a bus at any given time. So instead of spending all that energy about worrying about tomorrow and worrying about those future problems that are not even happening, again, maybe spending more time connecting with people, going for coffee, having more joy, connecting with more people in your day to day, and living as if each day is your last, is probably one of the best things that you can do. The next thing on our list, and if you've just joined us, we're going through the top 10 things that cause people to usually be depressed in 2025. And that was last week's main conversation. This week is to how those ways to overcome them from a non-Christian and a Christian perspective. Here we go. Community, yes, big. He said community is important. Things might be going fine. When things go sideways, you need people to lean on. We need to invest in communities so that we're available to help. And so, and help those people can be a big help when we need it. Absolutely. Thank you, Big, for that. Yeah, community is super, super important. And again, by finding it through a church, or, hobbies, or by finding it even with a sports group, it can be a fantastic way to be able to connect with people, even if it's just grabbing some food after. You never know how things can kind of start to unravel, right? And opportunities start to become, very open to you. If you think about it, if you do have a childhood friend, or people you've heard of who have childhood friends, it took families to move from different parts of the world to come to that one community to send their kids to school. And inevitably, that community has brought forth friendships that have lasted a lifetime, have brought forth many people who have gotten married, who were met in school at different time frames or different ages. You have people who within communities maybe actually end up maybe even sadly hurting themselves or becoming you know having conflict. But at the end of the day, it's within that community setting, whether it's at work or at church or in your neighborhood. Those communities are essential to fighting loneliness and not being, well, literally alone when hardships come, as big shared so lovely and so well. It's very, very poignant and very on time. We need to lean on people. Anyone who says, especially with us men, anyone who says that they're an island, they can do it on their own, they're full of it. If anything, they're probably the most volatile, they're the most broken, and they absolutely need the most community around them. Okay, so thank you again, Big. The next one we'll go into is faith. I think people are really struggling in the faith department. So, what does faith entail? Let's look at the definition of faith. And before that, I want to go to the word truth. So let's go to the faith definition. So the biblical definition of faith, according to the Bible, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. Now let's go to the word truth. So I think truth and faith probably could be coupled together. In the Bible, truth is not a mere concept, but a profound reality rooted in unchanging absolute nature of God himself. I think people are really struggling with the aspect of religion and with the aspect of what is truth and inevitably what they can put their faith in. So if we look at truth and the profound reality of faith, of truth itself, we're in a culture and we're in a world that has a lot of personal truths that seem to be real, to them. So if I have a belief system and I believe it to be true and I put my faith in it, then it is true. I think truth has to precede faith. You have to have an objective form of truth to be able to have faith in it actually working. So for instance, I have a belief in what the Bible says about my reality, about what is unchanging, and again, it's the nature of God. And so when I live in my day to day and a problem comes up, or I am dealing with a tough coworker or a situation or neighbor, I have the faith to know that that truth is true. And a lot of people are absolutely struggling with their faith right now. They don't know where truth lies, and so they're jumping straight to putting their faith in things that do not substantiate themselves, that do not give proof, or do not share unchanging beliefs. And that's really what is, I think, causing a lot of people to have a lot of despair, depression, loneliness, because they also are not then being in those communities where truth is at the center focal point, and faith can be then a shared experience. Because don't get me wrong, faith is one of the staples. It's used in a verse in James. Faith without works is dead. But it has to be again substantiated on truths, and those truths, by God's grace, we find in the Bible. So as Christians, we are constantly looking for, looking for the wisdom and knowledge from the Creator of the universe, who's given us His Word, so that we can be able to have faith in the day to day. I speak with a lot of people at my workplace that are from a plethora of different faiths. And the main thing that I find in common is that their faith level only goes so far, because their belief in the truth system they believe in only goes so far as well, or they haven't explored the truths properly for their faiths to be properly substantiated. I keep saying substantiated. So I think one of the cures for that is, if you're not a Christian, to do a deep dive into the truths in your world and see how deep those truths actually go. I think one of the things that you can really uh, dig deep into is moral conflict. Conflicts that cause you to think about life and death, or how someone should be treated, and the different types of people, whether it's your best friend or a family member, a spouse, or someone you don't like, someone who's your enemy. And look for the answers in your belief system, if they are to be true and how deep they are, if you're really looking for an answer. Now, from a Christian perspective, I think we need to continue to explore our faith within the sanctification process. So as we turn to the Bible, we keep reading the Bible, we keep connecting with people who know the Bible, who are also wanting to learn with us. We also then share our faith experiences, and that inevitably helps us to grow as a whole. So I would definitely say, if you are struggling with your faith or truth, do a deep dive into your belief system and see, what it actually means. Let's see if it's an actual uh, intrinsic belief system that you can live by, and then you'll be able to put your faith in it fully, and then see how that faith can manifest itself. So that would be faith. Now, again, we've covered job loss, we've covered doom scrolling, cost of living, relationships, AI, housing, the future, loneliness. Oh, sorry, not the future yet. Loneliness, future illnesses, and faith. The last topic that, unless again, if anyone has any questions on health, on finances, on relationships, on the Bible, on being a father, being a husband, any of these things, I definitely am fielding any of those questions tonight as well. But the last one is the future. I think as a whole, we are very, very worried about our future. We're worried about, again, the 9 of the things that I've listed as the future. What does the future hold? If it's AI, what does the future hold for my job potentially, or for the way society works? If it's for housing, if I'm in real estate, or if I am connecting with someone to buy something, is this an actual real listing? That has actually started to happen, where listings are duplicated, people's voices are faked, and you have a situation where you could be setting yourself up for at least embarrassment, if not a financial loss, because of that. So the future is a very troubling place. Now, again, let's go to the scriptures here, because that is very helpful. Again, let us not worry about tomorrow. Okay, so the Bible verse here, whoops, or should I probably said don't. Okay, so it's Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I would gather, I would bet. I used to have a problem with gambling, so I wouldn't bet. But I would really believe that most of you couldn't have seen 9/11 or the 2008 crash, or I don't think a lot of us would have seen COVID happening, and the things that happened during COVID. I don't think people would have seen the Air India crash that just happened recently, or the amount of injuries or problems that have happened over the past 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 100,000 years, over the existence of humanity. Even Nostradamus, I'm not exactly sure where he's at, but I think Nostradamus is only at like 50% of his predictions over the 5 or 6 centuries or 4 or 5 centuries since he's been alive. So the human condition is to want to know the future and to not live in the present, to not enjoy the time that we have, because living in the future, or trying to live in the future, causes us to have anxiety, which usually leads to fear. And one of the phrases I like to say to get people to think about it again is that perfect fear casts out love. Let me say it again. Perfect fear casts out love. So the actual verse is perfect love casts out fear. And the perfect love that casts out fear is from 1 John 4:18. For it says, there is no fear in love, But perfect love drives out fear because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So the fact of the matter is that when we think about and fixate and worry about the future, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to love the people around us in the moment, to connect with those people, to slow things down. A lot of the times, even when it comes to people who have anxieties or children who have illnesses or relationships, whether it's friends or family or spouses, a lot of the time if you track back and this is statistics and statistics can be skewed, but if you track things back, you'll find that a lot of people have big issues with the fear of the future. A lot of people are fighting about money. They're fighting about things that are necessary to work through, but not enough people are just enjoying the day, enjoying the beauty of nature, enjoying the sun. And I can tell you that when I was broke, when things were terrible in my life, I still tried my best to enjoy those things, and I should have been a statistic, but I can tell you, by God's grace, I've gone from a person who's been in negative digits five, like, and this isn't for house or car, but I've been in credit card debt 5 digits, like a high number 5 digits. And by God's grace, I'm way beyond that. I am in the positive. I'm doing very well for myself, and my family and I could move into a very nice home per se, but at the end of the day, we choose to live in the day, enjoy the blessings that we have, and be very flexible with our finances to help people along the way. So, one of the ways to combat this future fear and these future anxieties is to really stay grounded in today, to be thankful. One of the things that I use as a tool, especially at night when I am really concerned or worried, is to do my thankfulness check. And even right now, I have some sciatica. I have a back issue. It's pretty bad. I get shooting pains down my leg. It's a nerve issue. But when at night, not all the time, but sometimes I'll just start going through all the body parts and muscles that work well. Because a lot of the times we don't give thanks to God, and we're not thankful in general for the things that are working in our lives. We're always looking for the things that are broken or that are just not working up to their potential, and we fixate on them. We think about them all the time. We allow them to control our minds. So, I'll start on my toes and I'll work my way up, and I'll go into, the way my veins work, the way my ankles aren't hurting. I used to have bad ankles, moving to my calf muscle, my knees. And by the time I probably reach my, hips or my torso, I fall asleep because I'm just so thankful that I have this body that is being plugged into the universe by God's grace, and the spirit lives inside of me. And if I do get through my body and I only know a certain amount of biological parts, and I'm not amazing at biology, but I've learned a fair bit. But then I move to the room that I'm in and just being thankful for all the blessings that I have, the technology. And then from there, it's just, you could keep on going. If you're into the hours, you could start thanking God for the place that you live, and you can start praying for the institutions and the people around you. And I think if we live in that state of thankfulness, if we live in that state of being in the present and allowing it to be a wonderful gift for today, we diffuse the future fear. We diffuse the problems that are, they're coming either way, they're imminent, and we then hand them over to the one who created everything, created our entire universe. So, again, one of the ways to really combat the future and combat fear and worry is thankfulness and staying present. So that would be the roundup of the top 10 here for today. So I think to counter each one, if you're just tuning in, for job loss, again, it's maybe to look for a smaller gig on the side. But within this world filled with, again, moving into AI, to really stay connected to learning different languages or learning different customer service skills, just skills in which you can connect to a person to person, and be able to have that interconnected relationship. when it comes to cost of living, maybe you gotta swallow your pride, and maybe you gotta, live at home, or move back home, or find a good friend, and get yourself into that kind of position or situation. Oh, there's my daughter. I'm gonna have to sign off for tonight. I appreciate you guys. Have yourself a great one. I'm Stephen Tocher. Have yourself a wonderful day, evening, morning, or night. God bless.